The air in Washington, D.C. was thick with anticipation, a city on edge as dawn broke over the nation's capital. The streets were unusually quiet, yet charged with a sense of history in the making. Reporters set up their cameras, citizens gathered in hushed clusters, and the world watched, waiting for a decision that would ripple far beyond the marble steps of the Supreme Court. Inside the imposing Supreme Court building, security was tight, and the mood was solemn. The justices, robed in black, filed into the chamber, fully aware that their ruling would not only reshape the presidency, but also send shockwaves through the global economy and the daily lives of millions of Americans. All eyes were fixed on the iconic marble facade, a symbol of justice and authority. Today it stood as the stage for a pivotal moment in American history, where the very foundation of presidential power in international trade was being put to the ultimate test. The tension was palpable, as if the building itself was holding its breath. Years earlier, former President Trump's sweeping tariffs on steel, aluminum, and a wide range of Chinese goods had upended the established order of global trade. These measures, intended to protect American industries, instead sparked fierce retaliation from trading partners, ignited trade wars, and sent shockwaves through supply chains. Factories scrambled to adapt, prices soared, and uncertainty became the new normal for businesses and consumers alike. Now, after years of legal battles and political debate, the highest court in the land has delivered a stunning rebuke. The justice's decision challenges the very core of that protectionist agenda, calling into question the limits of presidential authority and the future of American trade policy. The impact of this ruling will be felt in every corner of the country. From the assembly lines of Detroit to the appliance showrooms in small towns, from workers on factory floors to families shopping for everyday goods, millions of Americans will see changes in car prices, home appliances, and job security. The decision reaches into the heart of the American economy, touching lives in ways both immediate and profound. In a landmark 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court has struck down the legal authority that allowed the executive branch to impose those sweeping tariffs. The courtroom was electric as the gavel fell, signaling a dramatic shift in the balance of power between the presidency and the judiciary. Legal experts and onlookers alike recognized the magnitude of the moment. Chief Justice John Roberts, writing for the majority, delivered a definitive statement on the limits of executive authority in a globalized world. His opinion underscored the importance of checks and balances, reminding the nation that even the highest office must answer to the rule of law. Analysts immediately began dissecting the implications, debating what this means for future presidents and America's role on the world stage. With this decision, the era of the Trump tariffs has come to a sudden and dramatic end. The policies that once defined an administration and divided a nation are now part of history, their legacy uncertain as the country faces a new chapter. Across the nation, from bustling factories to high-powered boardrooms, from economists tracking market data to workers listening anxiously to the news, one question echoes: what happens next? The uncertainty is as heavy as ever, with businesses and families bracing for the changes to come. The fallout from this historic ruling is only just beginning. As the dust settles, America stands at a crossroads, its future in global trade and domestic prosperity hanging in the balance. The nation holds its breath, waiting to see what tomorrow will bring. This is not just an American story, it's a global event with profound consequences. For nearly a decade, the world has adapted to trade wars and uncertainty from U.S. policy shifts. This ruling hits the reset button, signaling a possible return to a rules-based international trading system. In Beijing and Brussels, leaders see hope for stability, but global supply chains won't snap back overnight. Developing nations that benefited from trade diversion may now face new challenges, while others see opportunity. The world must now reassess strategies as the U.S. redefines its role in global trade. The future of international commerce hinges on how America and its partners respond. Tariffs have shaped American politics since the nation's founding. From the Tariff Act of 1789 to the disastrous Smoot-Hawley Tariff of 1930, protectionism has sparked fierce debate and economic turmoil. After World War II, the U.S. led a global shift toward free trade, creating institutions like the WTO. But in the 21st century, anxiety over lost jobs and China's rise fueled a new wave of economic nationalism. Critics argued free trade favored elites, setting the stage for Trump's America First agenda. Tariffs became the weapon of choice in a bid to reclaim American economic dominance. The Trump administration's tariff strategy began in 2018, invoking national security to justify sweeping tariffs on steel and aluminum. Allies were angered, and U.S. industries warned of higher costs and lost competitiveness. The conflict escalated with tariffs on hundreds of billions in Chinese goods, triggering retaliation that hit American farmers hard. The administration insisted tariffs would rebalance trade and protect American workers. Critics saw an abuse of national security laws and a dangerous overreach of executive power. This fundamental clash over presidential authority set the stage for a Supreme Court showdown. The legal fight against the tariffs was waged by a coalition of businesses and industry groups. They argued the president had overstepped, usurping Congress's power to regulate trade. Early court rulings upheld the tariffs, but relentless lawsuits challenged both the process and the scope of executive authority. Thousands of companies joined the fray, creating a massive legal backlog. After years of appeals, the Supreme Court finally agreed to hear the case in 2024. The stage was set for a historic decision on the separation of powers. The outcome would redefine the limits of presidential power in trade. On September 17, 2025, the Supreme Court delivered its highly anticipated verdict in the case of American Alliance for Fair Trade vs. United States. The nation watched closely as the justices prepared to address a question that had far-reaching implications for both the economy and the balance of power within the federal government. In a 6-3 decision, the court ruled that the president's broad use of Section 232 tariffs was an overreach of executive authority. This landmark ruling marked a significant moment in the ongoing debate over the limits of presidential power, especially when it comes to matters of trade and national security. Chief Justice Roberts, writing for the majority, emphasized that national security justifications must be narrowly defined and directly linked to actual defense needs, rather than used as a blanket rationale for sweeping economic measures. He argued that allowing the executive branch unchecked discretion could undermine the constitutional separation of powers. The ruling sharply limits executive authority, reaffirming Congress's constitutional role in regulating trade. By doing so, the court sent a clear message that the legislative branch must have a decisive voice in shaping the nation's economic policies, especially those that impact international relations and domestic industries. The dissenting justices, however, warned against what they saw as judicial overreach into foreign affairs, arguing that the president needs flexibility to respond to global threats. Despite their concerns, the majority drew a clear line, insisting that checks and balances must be preserved. The decision effectively invalidates the legal basis for the Trump-era tariffs, as well as potentially other similar measures enacted under Section 232. This could lead to the removal of tariffs on a wide range of imported goods, impacting industries from steel to consumer electronics. Businesses and consumers across the country hailed the ruling as a victory for the rule of law and for economic stability. Many small business owners expressed relief, hoping that lower tariffs would reduce costs and increase access to global markets, while shoppers anticipated lower prices on everyday goods. On the other hand, supporters of the tariffs decried the decision as a blow to American workers and domestic manufacturing. They argued that removing these protections could lead to job losses and make it harder for U.S. industries to compete with foreign imports. As the dust settles, the political and economic repercussions of the Supreme Court's decision are only beginning to unfold. Lawmakers, business leaders, and workers alike are now grappling with the new landscape as the nation adjusts to a redefined balance of power and a shifting approach to trade policy. The Supreme Court's decision is reshaping the U.S. economy, creating new winners and losers. Industries reliant on imports like autos and construction stand to benefit from lower costs. Domestic steel and aluminum producers, once protected, now face tough competition and possible job losses. Consumers may see lower prices on goods, but the job market's response will be mixed. The ruling forces companies to reconsider years of supply chain changes. Some may stick with new, resilient supply chains despite higher costs. The trade war may be over, but its effects will linger. The economic landscape remains uncertain as businesses adapt. Policymakers will closely watch the impact on jobs and growth. The next chapter for American industry is just beginning. Experts see the ruling as a landmark reaffirmation of checks and balances, a cornerstone of American democracy. This decision underscores the judiciary's role in maintaining equilibrium among the branches of government, ensuring that no single branch oversteps its authority. Dr. Elena Vance notes it reins in the imperial presidency by demanding genuine national security justifications for trade actions. She emphasizes that this ruling could set a precedent for future administrations, requiring them to provide transparent and substantial evidence before imposing economic measures. Business leaders welcome relief from tariffs, but face new strategic dilemmas. Investments made to avoid tariffs won't be easily reversed. Companies must now navigate a complex landscape, balancing past decisions with new opportunities and reassessing their global supply chains. The decision signals a shift from trade war to strategic realignment. It opens the door for renewed negotiations and partnerships, potentially fostering a more stable international trade environment. Internationally, allies see renewed faith in U.S. institutions, while rivals may sense division. This ruling could influence global perceptions of American leadership, affecting diplomatic relations and economic alliances. The political fallout is immediate. Free trade advocates are energized, protectionists are galvanized, and Congress is now the battleground. The decision has sparked a fervent debate, with each side rallying support for their vision of America's economic future. Lawmakers must decide whether to grant new tariff powers or reclaim their constitutional authority. This decision could redefine the balance of power between the executive and legislative branches, influencing future trade policies. The debate over trade policy is far from over. As discussions continue, the nation watches closely, aware that the outcomes will shape the economic landscape for years to come. The Supreme Court has moved the fight from the White House to Congress. This shift highlights the ongoing struggle for power and influence in shaping the nation's trade policies, with significant implications for the future. The Supreme Court's decision closes one chapter and opens another in global trade. The underlying issues, fair competition, intellectual property, and manufacturing decline, remain unresolved. Congress now faces the challenge of crafting a new trade policy for the 21st century. The U.S. has an opportunity to re-engage with allies and rebuild trust in the global trading system. But the world has changed, and trust will take time to restore. The future of trade depends on cooperation and thoughtful legislation. America's democratic institutions have shown their strength, but the debate is just beginning. The conversation about America's role in global trade now belongs to all of us.